law professor. Both are Fox News contributors. It is remarkable to look at where we are right now. This has been the most eventful presidency for the last 4 years of any that I think any of us can remember for quite some time. Some comparisons being made to Andrew Johnson and the way that he exited the White House at the end of his term. Carl, as you look at this list of Republicans, your thoughts tonight?
Well, the biggest one would be Leader McConnell. Of course, first of all, there are several different possibilities here. One is that this is a rumor and not true. The report came originally in the New York Times. It could be that the leader believes this is inevitable. Speaker Pelosi has made it clear she intends to impeach the president, and this measure is coming to the Senate, and he may welcome that, realizing that it's going to tie up the Senate for the first couple of weeks of President Biden's term. Or it could be that he's had enough, that after Georgia, after all the charges of stolen elections, after what happened on Wednesday, an assault on the Capitol, that Leader McConnell has had enough and is welcoming the chance for the Senate to take up the issue. Doesn't necessarily guarantee that he's going to vote for impeachment, but he may recognize that having been impeached, even if he's not removed from office or can't be removed from office because he's already left, that this further discredits President Trump and makes it easier for the party to move on beyond him. We don't know, and we won't know until the leader tells us exactly what he thinks.
Yeah, you know, as you point out, all of these are sort of stories that have been out there, and we've been hearing them this afternoon, late this evening, from different sources. But he has not said for himself how he would act in all of this. Carl, just staying with you for a moment, just to make it clear to everybody at home, the Senate is not in session, so there's no way, and we haven't heard about any sort of emergency session on the Senate side, correct?
That's correct. And remember, the Senate, by unanimous consent, said it would not come back in until January 19th. So if it is called back into session, if one member objects, they cannot meet. This was an agreement by every member House of the chamber, Democrat and Republican, unanimously agreed. We're out until the 19th of January.
Jonathan, I want to bring you in here, just getting some reports. There's a lot coming in tonight as we're talking, and we've seen so far 3 announced Republicans, and there are some reports, John Roberts reporting that it could be 10 to 20 on the House side that are ready to vote with Republicans on impeachment. And then CNN saying that Adam Schiff believes that there's an earthquake underway on the Senate side. You know, that remains to be seen. But your thoughts tonight, Jonathan?
I don't fault any member who views this as an impeachable offense to vote that way. These are close questions. My misgiving is over the use of a snap impeachment. They did not even hold a single hearing to talk about the implications of creating this type of fast track to impeachment. And so impeachment's not supposed to be some bang-bang play. It's not supposed to happen on impulse. It's designed for the opposite purpose. So my main objection is the lack of any hearing at all, looking at the implications of what they're doing. There's also real questions there about the underlying charge. I do not believe that what the president said would qualify as criminal incitement. People of good faith can disagree on that, but as a longtime criminal defense attorney, I don't find that very credible. That doesn't mean that he didn't incite the crowd. It's just not criminal incitement, and that's not the sole measure of whether you have a legitimate article of impeachment. So those people who are pushing for impeachment certainly can argue this might not be criminal, but we still believe it's impeachable. But they should deal, at least in a single hearing, with the question of, you know, how do you deal with this for the future? It's not about President Trump. You're combining a new snap impeachment mechanism with this rather ambiguous standard that a president can be impeached, even though he said he wanted his people to go peacefully to the Capitol and cheer on supporters and boo those against challenges. You're saying that, well, he can be vicariously responsible for the riot. That's not, I don't think that's a ridiculous position by any means. I condemned the speech while it was going on. I support the censure of the president. But we should talk about this, and that's why I've just been saying we need to have some caution. Now, that caution may have to come in the Senate. I mean, they may have to do what the House usually does, and that is hold a hearing on what this type of impeachment would mean.
So, Carl, you know, with that as a backdrop, there is this notion that if the president was impeached, that he would not be able to run again. And it may be that that is the motivation of a lot of people here, because he has said quite clearly, even just a few days ago, even on January 6th, he said, we're just beginning. Whether or not there's any appetite for that in the Republican Party or in the country after all of this remains to be seen. But we have seen, we've seen some pretty surprising things happen over the last 4 years. So what do you think about his future in this moment?
Well, I think he's going to leave office disgraced and discredited, even among a significant share, a number of his supporters, people who supported him because of his policies, not because of his personality or persona. But I think I agree with Professor Turley. Look, I think one of the powerful points that Representative Cheney made was that the president sat there in the Oval Office as we watched in horror as this assault was made on the Capitol and did nothing. He did not go out and call upon his supporters to withdraw from the Capitol and to leave in peace. Then it was hours later, and he didn't even then he couldn't bring himself to condemn the violence. But having said that, the rush to judgment in the House, the lack of a thoughtful process, and an immediately dump on the United States Senate to fill in the blanks that the House isn't willing to establish by having a hearing and discussion and controversy and questioning and so forth, is, I think, very problematic for the country. This is not going to be good. This is not going to be good for the country, whether you're in favor of removing the president from office or not. And remember, he's not going to be removed from office, and if this does happen, until he's out of office. And that gets to be a real question as to whether or not the impeachment power, ends when the president leaves office. We've never had this done before with the president. We've had it happen with a member of a president's cabinet under Ulysses S. Grant. The Secretary of War was impeached after he left office. But then he was acquitted by the Senate, and in part because he was already gone, disgraced and gone. So I agree with the professor. This is unseemly, and however it goes forward, it's not going to be good for the country.
On a more specific legal question, before I let you go, Jonathan Turley, there was a story today talking about how they were discussing the potential for civil charges or civil cases to be brought against the president. And, some of the tape that we've seen now, the videotape that we've seen of these, it's horrific to watch, of these Capitol police officers being dragged through the crowd and beaten over the head with sticks. And meanwhile, people are chanting, "Hang Vice President Pence," right? So when you look at the damage that was done and the deaths that happened in this situation, is there, do you think, some kind of civil liability? One of the lines that they explained it to the president by saying, it's like OJ in terms of civil liabilities that came later.
Well, this civil liability has the benefit of having a lower standard of proof. So you just have proof by preponderance of the evidence, not by beyond a reasonable doubt. So that's a big difference. But we still don't know a lot of things. That's part of the problem with the snap impeachment. We don't know what Trump knew, what Trump said, what Trump did in the Oval Office. One of the reasons I believe that it's clear that there's a case for condemnation and a censure, and there may be a basis for impeachment, is that we still just need to know some of those facts. But there's clearly a basis for condemnation. I agree entirely with Carl. I was really livid watching this unfold and not hearing from the president. There may be culpability there, but I got to tell you, honestly, I think it would be very hard to establish. I mean, I know that it would be, there's a certain cathartic aspect to saying, well, at least there'll be some civil liability, but I don't want to give people the wrong idea. I think both on the criminal and civil side, thus far, it'd be very difficult to establish liability or guilt.
Great point. Great points on both sides. Thank you very much to you both, Jonathan Turley, Karl Rove. Great to see you tonight.